I know, I know. It feels like I'm shaving away a part of your soul, but that's okay, you know. If you don't, do you know the adage of if you don't remember it, then it probably wasn't important? It's like that, except for important memories. Okay, and then just. Oh, hello there. Welcome. Come on in. I'm sure it's a bit of a shock, you know, you being here. Yes, yes, everything's gonna be all right. Right now, you are dead. Unfortunate. This is, you know, people call it many things, but some people call it purgatory. Some people call it the pearly gates. Whatever you call it, you're the in between of the good place and the bad place, and I'm here as a representative to help assist you in figuring out your placement. You know, we really want to make sure that, you know, the people that come through here, the souls that are a little lost, can find their way so that they're able to get to the proper place, and so that their soul can either, you know, rest in eternal joy or, you know, burn in eternal hell forever. Now, we're going to do a very meticulous inspection of every major life choice that you've made. And I use the word choice quite purposefully. You know, some of these choices are perhaps not what you would think as a choice, but, you know, it caused issues nonetheless, or did good, right? And so it's something that we need to keep a handle on anyway. But let's not say that your representative was, you know, a spoil sport. So let's just get you some tea or some water or something, just so that you're able to sort of relax and really get situated, you know, because if this is your only time when you're not like burning forever, then perhaps you'd like to savor it, right? And at least you get a warning. That's something I always tell souls as they come through here. If they end up going to hell, you know, sometimes they feel a bit bummed. I say that, like, oh hey, but at least you got to experience what it would be like if you weren't burning all the time. So you have that yearning. And, you know, there's nothing you can do about it now, and there's nothing you will ever be able to do about it. But I think that having that information makes you a better person, makes you stronger, you know, more prepared for your eternal damnation. So let's just get some tea in here. Yeah, you can't see the liquid coming in. It's liquid for the soul. Okay, here, you want to take a little sniff? No, you can't drink quite yet. No, this is going to be important. Okay, so we've got this, and we've got a nail filer, but it's not really a nail filer. You'll see. Oh, you'll see. So how about we get started? Okay, so let me flip to your page, shall we? Oh no, I dealt with her last week. What else is there? Yeah. Oh, that poor man. Oh, she made it in. Oh yeah. Okay. Is this? Okay, let's start here. Okay. Sir Connor Wadsworth, knight in medieval England and known to all. You swore your oath and you tried to uphold it as much as you could. Is that correct? Is that you, Connor Wadsworth? Yes. Okay. Well then, we should get started. I'm going to go through each trait, talk about how it affected your life and the people around you. Then I'm going to give it, I'm going to do a bit of a math problem. If it comes out positive, then I'm going to give you some of that tea for you to drink to gain those points to enter heaven. And if it turns out negative, then I will file away at your soul, taking some of that points away, okay? Yeah, very simple and easy, okay? So let's start with your basic traits, okay? And these are traits that existed for the majority of your life, things that I would say people would categorize you under when they think Connor Wadsworth. These are things that are just inherent to you, right? So one, you had a manly odor. Whether intentional or not, you exuded a level of musk that simply was unparalleled. One of the most interesting things about this little tidbit here is that women tended to enjoy your smell. So you did end up having a sort of a charm effect on a lot of women. However, a lot of men ended up hating it. And if women did not find you attractive, they also hated it. So really, it's just if women or anybody really found you attractive, they liked it, but then otherwise it wasn't very helpful. You did have to, as a knight, go through a bit of sort of like some stealth missions, right? You had to go and sort of be a little sneaky, go undercover. But your manly odor did get in the way of that. If I recall, you caused the death of 4 different knights. Yes, I think it's 4. Yes, it's Oliver, Connor number 2, Harry, and Ron. So yes, with that, so if I take this into account, and then people were probably enjoyed your presence if they enjoyed you, but then that kind of is canceled out. But yeah, you look a little confused. Don't worry, this is just typical calculations that we do here. So okay, that did end up in the negative. The 4 deaths really swung it in that direction, I would say. So let's just go in and just file away at your soul. There you go. There, just a bit. Okay, and then just 1 for Connor number 2, for Harry, for Ron, and Oliver. Okay. So, basic trait number 1 done. How are you feeling? A bit more empty? Yeah, that's normal. So number 2, another trait that people tended to have as you were going about your nightly duties is that you were a wanderer. People thought of you as a wanderer, but mainly what really they thought about and how this really affected you is because you walked around and you really went from town to town during your youth. You always you got really used to sleeping in a bad bed. And this is really interesting. Not many people would, we get thousands and thousands, millions of souls that come through here, but this is pretty unique. You slept in a bad bed constantly, but you ended up liking that. So you would always end up offering your bed to companions, friends, if it was pretty comfortable. Now that would give you a lot of pretty good points, but I will say that this was done not particularly. I mean, I'm giving you a side eye because you know what I'm gonna say. This was done not in a particularly selfless behavior. You like the feeling of sleeping in a non-comfortable bed, so it doesn't change the fact that you did have a positive impact on people. So don't worry, that is something that will be taken into account. So if I just carry over this here, and you can see right here, you can follow the math here. I really encourage sort of open book sort of learning. So you will get a copy of this before you go to your assigned hell or heaven placement. Okay, so that did end up being in the positive. Is there a reason why you look pretty uncomfortable right now? Oh, okay, you're a bit, don't worry, we see everything here. So, if you're trying to hide something within your traits, don't worry, it is accounted for. So try not to think that you're hiding anything, and if you do think that something is relevant, whether good or bad, saying it now might yield some good results for you. So try and be a good person now. Okay. So nothing you want to say? Okay. All right then. So it's just a little bit of positive. So let's get you your tea, and here, have a nice little drink. There we go. How does that? Does that taste good? So for the next one, next basic trait you were a bit of a brute. People thought of you generally when you're a bit of a brute. This is not a very unusual trait, I would say. You were a bit dumb. You know, people would look at you and be like, "Oh, bless his soul." You know, he's going around doing what he can, but it's okay. You know, you're just, sometimes people aren't meant to be smart, and that was you. So you were a bit dumb, but you were pretty helpful in a lot of daily tasks. In particular, we took note that for a year straight, you helped the shepherd's wife with a lot of the tending around the house. And you know, when I saw this, I was like, surely he's sleeping with her. Like, there is no way he's doing that just selflessly. But it really does seem like you were doing it pretty selflessly. So, you know, that is pretty good. And, you know, it's not the only time that you've done it, but it's something that we're really taking a note of. And your bruteness, your sort of like very like muscular demeanor was never used for evil. You know, some might say that, you know, being a knight is a kind of evil, and, you know, I personally would agree with that. However, you did not, again, if we reference point one, a bit dumb. I don't think you were thinking too much about that, and so we can't really hold that against you. You did kill a lot of people, but that isn't because of the brute nature. And, you know, sometimes these points end up it is calculated, but it is diluted by the fact that you were not alone, and that there was a head person in charge of that, right? So you, the lord that you've sworn an oath for, would bear the brunt of a lot of that calculations, right? So let's just do that and see what ends up. Okay, and then factoring in the shepherd's wife, as well as all of the other people. Okay, then carry that here, and then, okay. Ooh, that's a bit of a toughie. Okay, so it's coming out to an even 0. You don't get any points, you don't lose any points. I guess it doesn't really pay to be a brute. But hey, you didn't lose any points, so can't really fault the system here, now can we? Okay then. Do you have any questions so far? No, and is there anything else, anything that you want to say before we continue? No, okay. Alright. So next, you were kind of considered as a trait, a basic trait. People thought of you as a local hero. Interesting. Okay. They sort of put you on a pedestal. You know, they think of you. This was more in your later years when you gained the title of sort of like Knight Wadsworth, when you married your like wife. However, you did fail to live up to expectations. You did divorce your wife, sort of left her high and dry, and you did, in fact, you know, it's really hard to live up to expectations. A lot of the times, being a local hero ends up giving you negative points because people end up being disappointed in you, and disappointment is only ever bad for the person who is the disappointment. It's never bad for the person who's doing the disappointing. If that didn't make sense, it's okay. It's a very confusing system. It's there on purpose. So this should be an easy calculation. Yes. We're gonna have to take some points away. Okay. So. Okay. I know. It feels like I'm shaving away a part of your soul, but that's okay, you know. If you don't, do you know the adage of if you don't remember it, then it probably wasn't important? It's like that, except for important memories. Okay, and then just, okay. And, okay, there we go. That should be good. Okay. So, next, the last basic trait that needs some calculations is you were a bit contemplative. I have here that you were, this was very much a baby girl trait. You know, people really liked it. They thought very fondly of you. This was during an era of your life where you were attractive, but still had a little bit of power, but didn't use that power negatively yet. So people had this sort of like thought process, and it really inspired a few people to get into sort of a you know, BDSM sort of culture. And I think that that's really interesting. You know, oh, you don't know what BDSM culture is? That's okay. You know, that's just, you know, that is something that we talk about here, but I forget that in your time period, that's not something that you really know. But really, you were easily abusable. And that's not good. You know, that's not representative of BDSM culture. You know, so that really put a bad, you know, a bad rap for BDSM. So that is, I think, going to be more negative points in total. But let me do the calculations to make sure. You know, I don't want to, you know, put the cart in front of the horse. Or the horse. You know what I'm trying to say. That is an idiom that you should know, I think. Okay, yeah, that is negative points. So. Just a bit more here, yeah. Okay, then over here. Okay, surely you'll have some positive in a bit. So don't worry, we'll add a bit more back. I'm sure it'll be fine. And if it's not, then there's nothing I can do about it, so. Okay. Okay, so if we're talking about your childhood traits, the first one is that you did get a tapeworm when you were younger. You know, it's interesting that we call that a trait. I think for certain time periods of existence, we wouldn't call that a trait, more just an illness or an affliction. But during this time frame, there was no way to get rid of the tapeworm, so it just sort of existed within you throughout the majority of your life. But it's in childhood traits because you ate something that you should not have. Do you remember what that was? Yes, you did, in fact, take a few pieces of bread from the baker, and you really shouldn't have done that because that is what gave you the tapeworm. And really the biggest thing about that is not only is that negative, but it also made it hard for your family to feed you. They needed to work harder. Your dad needed to work harder and your mom needed to work harder because they needed to feed 2 stomachs, basically. So that is a negative. However, it is an inspiration to us here, just to see that you sort of overcame that. So I will say that that is pretty good. But this is turning out to be a bit more negative than I had hoped for you. I know. Okay. Here, just doing the calculation. Let's just see. Yeah, and if and your parents, they needed some time that they couldn't get because you were eating everything. Okay. So it's unfortunate. I'm so sorry. So just okay. Stay still. Okay. I'm sorry. I know I'm taking a lot of your soul away, but it is what it is. It's nothing that I can do about it. Okay. So next is your next childhood trait is that you did get the shakes when you were younger. You got stuck in a well. I have this written down. Do you remember? Oh, it's pretty traumatic. Yeah, you would rather not talk about it? Well, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to talk about it. This is not therapy, you know, this is, I have to dissect everything that's happened in your life, so everything important at least. So you did get stuck in a well, however, and you know, you were there for quite a while. Your parents had to get you out, but after hours of being in there, the cold from the water really ended up giving you the shakes for the rest of your life. But you still became a knight, you overcame that. And so you used that as a great inspirational story. A lot of people came from all around towns just to hear you speak about this inspirational story. I was stuck in a well, I have the shakes, I can't wield a bow and arrow properly, and yet I'm able to become a knight to our Lord, and I'm able to fight for our country. That is truly inspirational. However, I'm going to have to take into account the fact that you do get negative points because you are an inspiration stereotype. You know, in other time periods, there is such a thing as being a stereotype, right? And so if you are an inspiration because of some form of like disability, or because you ended up you know, you're overcoming something like an obstacle in your life, and people take joy from that, it really doesn't represent you know, it doesn't represent people that well. You know, and you start to give the expectation that anyone can overcome these obstacles, and no, actually these obstacles are obstacles that need to be addressed by the overarching power structures that exist within whatever like society that you're living in, right? So what I'm trying to say is that you did end up helping people get the idea that just because you have an obstacle, it means that it's your problem, right? And it led to a lot of a lack of empathy. So I will say this, this is going to be a tough one, but if I look at this, here, let me go over here. I'm running out of space. Okay, this does end up being in the positive. You were overall pretty inspirational. You did overcome this, and you did end up helping and inspiring a lot of people that did have the shakes or did have some form of obstacle. However, just keep in mind in the future that you should add an addendum. That's just like, hey, just because I was able to overcome it doesn't mean that everybody can overcome it, and it's not really your responsibility as the person who has the obstacle to overcome it. Instead, we should look to the people in charge and look to the people that have power to make it easier and more accessible, right? So you will get a nice little sip of tea for that. So let's just... Okay. Perfect. Okay, just a couple more and then we'll be done. So we've got, you are claustrophobic, and this is a childhood trait that you sort of grew out of, but it is important because of the situation, right? A bucket got stuck in your head, and you know, it was there for so long that the darkness really freaked you out. I'm sorry to air all of your dirty laundry here, but this is really important. So you did end up getting an axe to your head to get out of it. So your dad did take one of his axes, hit the bucket and shattered it on your head. Thankfully you weren't injured. You know, and this claustrophobia was really a hassle for a lot of people. Plus, it was a waste of an axe. You know, that axe had to be made at a blacksmith that your father had to pay, right? So he had to commission a new axe, and that was not cheap. But thankfully, the bucket getting stuck on your head was not something that you really planned for, nor was it something that you thought like did carelessly. It was really like sort of a freak accident. So if I do the calculations here, I have an idea as to what this is going to work out to, but let me just here and then down there, carry that, solve for x, and yeah, it's a 0. So it did, you know, it's a pretty important moment in your life, but not something that we can really pass judgment on. Next is, you were born with brittle bones. And this is the last one here. This really, we wouldn't put this in Here, except for the fact that your father was real sad that you had brittle bones, he just wanted to have someone who could help him, cut trees down. He really wanted someone that could help with the family business, and because of your brittle bones, it made it really difficult. And so you were the cause of a lot of sadness for your father. It did help him grow as a person and learn that just because you have a son who you project a lot of your expectations to doesn't mean that that son is going to meet those expectations or that they're not going to go a different way in life. So, it's just one of those things where I think you helped your father more than hurt. So I think this is actually, this is going to be a positive. Wow, that is surprising. Normally when you disappoint a father, that's negative points for you, but not this time, so. Okay, here we go, Okay, so, anything that you need to tell me before we get to the final tally? No? Okay, well, if we're gonna start with the final tally, then... Wait a second. I have a little bag of things you've hidden from me. No, that's not good. That's not good at all. Sorry, these are traits. This happens every so often when someone refuses to divulge certain information. Yes, we have all of this information, but as your representative, I am, an ethereal being, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't make any mistakes. So this is just sort of a check for me, and it's also a check for you, right? Are you acting as a good person now? And you didn't bring any of these up. So there's 3 cards here. First one is, the Lovers. Interesting. So what I am reading on this card is that you had a thing with your squire, didn't you? You didn't tell anybody about it, not even us. This is not good. I'm gonna have to do a bit more calculations on this. Okay. Were you happy? Okay. That's good to know. And, but you did have to, okay. Okay, well, before we get to the final thing, let's look at the other cards, right? And so you did have, the Queen of Coins. This is in reference to your wife, right? You divorced her. Is that because of the squire? Interesting. Okay. So that's going to factor into the calculations as well. Okay. And lastly on here is you did in fact embrace the devil. That is quite sad. How did you embrace the devil? Oh, people thought you embraced. This is a reputation thing, isn't it? Okay, well, you were a local hero, so embracing the devil was probably not the right move for you. But if you wanted to, you could have told us, and this would have been a neutral trait. But okay, doing these calculations, yeah, it's going to take out quite a few points from you. So if I just a big and another big. Okay then, well, if I'm looking at your tally now, it sort of looks like you are pretty even. So you are going to have to stick in purgatory with us. There's a few things, you can see hell below. The floor is transparent. You'll be able to see everybody who's burning below you so that you can feel like you did escape a narrow damnation. However, you can also see the people above you who enjoying the time of their life. So, if you want, I can give you a tour since, you're going to be here for a while, eternity, that is. And, if you want to, there is sort of upward mobility. We don't offer paid sick leave, though, so something to think about. Okay, then. Well, I'll leave you to it, and I'll come back and we'll do a tour, okay? All right, then.